Russia and US have traded barbs at each other during the Security Council meeting on the issue of biological laboratories in Ukraine. Now, while Russia alleges that US activities in Ukraine are linked to biological weapons, the United States has hit back. Now, the US has accused, in fact, Russia of using the UNSE meet to spread disinformation. Now, Russia alleges that it has documents to confirm that there was a network consisting of at least 30 biological labs in Ukraine. Now, Russia also alleges that US has been funding dangerous biological experiments in Ukraine.
Позвали сегодняшнее заседание, поскольку в ходе проведения России специальной военной операции на Украине вскрылись поистине шокирующие факты экстренной зачистки киевским режимом следов военно-биологической программы, реализуемой Киевом при поддержке Минобороны США.
You also heard from Ms. Nakamitsu that the UN is not aware of any biological or chemical weapons programs in Ukraine. Last month, Secretary Blinken laid out with tragic accuracy what Russia was about to do. He specifically warned that Russia would manufacture a pretext for attack and even cautioned that Russia would fabricate allegations about chemical or biological weapons to justify its own violent attacks against the Ukrainian people. Today, the world is watching Russia do exactly what we warned it would. Russia is attempting to use the Security Council to legitimize disinformation and deceive people to justify President Putin's war of choice against the Ukrainian people.
Yes, undoubtedly, it's very clear now that the Cold War, which was supposed to have ended in 1989 or 1990, has actually begun again. And this is more than a Cold War. This is almost like how things were in Berlin in the mid-40s, or Hungary, or Czechoslovakia, or Vietnam, or whatever. So the point here is that this is where all the action will be, because both sides cannot get into the conflict. The Americans cannot get into Ukraine. It would mean huge consequences otherwise if NATO were to be involved, and NATO has made it very clear that it isn't possible. So the only two things that the Americans and the NATO countries can do is, one, at a diplomatic level, which you're seeing right now. India, as it happens, has also spoken about the biological issues. The second point, of course, is sanctions, economic fight and a diplomatic fight. These are the two things that the Americans and their allies and their friends are looking at in the world. So that point has to be mentioned. It's very clear that the conflict that will happen will be in the UN, and there will be economic sanctions and economic warfare.
Now, Russian forces have expanded their offensive in Ukraine by striking new areas in the west for the first time. In the latest, explosions were heard in Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital. Cities of Kharkiv, Mariupol and Sumy continues to witness the Russian onslaught. Now, the 65-kilometer long convoy that we had seen sitting outside the capital for nearly 2 weeks has now largely dispersed. A total of more than 7,000 people were evacuated from 4 Ukrainian cities in the past 24 hours. The war has forced over 23 lakh people to flee Ukraine, and others are trying to seek refuge in basements, subway stations, and even underground shelters. Now, the Russian shelling has reduced several Ukrainian cities into rubble. Now, this amid the ongoing Russian onslaught. People have been fleeing to safer places. Times Network's Pradeep sends us this report from Ukraine.
Right now, we are in Bucha district, just a few hundred meters away from enemy post, where trigger-happy Russian soldiers are waiting to aim at each and every person. See, if you're going from that side, you are bound to get hit, and that's exactly what's happening. Look at the condition of the sky. It's completely fog-packed. These bullets have hit the sky, and see what is the condition of the sky. No one knows whether the people who are sitting inside, they have survived. These bullets have damaged damaged cars lying here, they also came under a heavy shelling from the Russian side. Now see, this is another car. This car has also been damaged because of Russian shelling. So just if we move 2 meters inside this territory, we are bound to get hit. It's not easy of working here or reporting from this also. Anytime anything can happen because this is the area that people say even eagles fear to treat. Look at the condition of the car. Look at the condition of the car. If you can see. That means if we cross this bridge and just go a few hundred meters away, there is every possibility of them aiming at us there because they are waiting for the moment. Any moment on that side gets hit and they committed that mistake, they had no other option because they were fleeing towards safer places, they were going towards safer areas, fleeing towards places away from Russian shell, away from Russian bullets. Somehow, some of them suffered, some got injured. Scotland Yard, we saw that how some of the injured were evacuated towards nearby hospital by Ukraine. The things are difficult because bullet doesn't have eye. Nobody knows who is going to get hit. At the end of the day, it's only the civilians who suffer. It's the human race who suffers.